Hello, everyone. My name is Cal Sahota. I am the VP of Possibilities with the HeroX team. I'm pleased and excited to be hosting NASA's Lunar Delivery Winners Webinar. So for those that don't know, a Winners Webinar is a unique opportunity for you as the audience to get a glimpse behind the solution. So today we're going to be learning a little bit more about the faces behind the names to these amazing solutions, what compelled them to compete, what inspired their solutions, and quite simply just learning a little bit more about who they are. NASA quite literally has rocket scientists at their fingertips, but even they know that genius can literally live anywhere. We're excited to share some of these really incredible stories, and at the end of this webinar, we're hopeful that it leaves you both informed as well as inspired. So it looks like we have a few guests with us today. So let's start off with just a quick round of introductions. So joining me today from the HeroX team, we have our VP of Customer Success and the project manager for this particular project, Kyla Jeffrey. Kyla and her team are the ones that work really closely with our clients to ensure that every project is successful and well executed. Kyla, how are you this afternoon?
I'm doing good, thanks, Cal.
So now that the audience knows what you do, why don't you tell them a little bit about who you are?
Sure. I fight with Cal all the time about having the most fun job because I think I do and she thinks she does, but I get the pleasure of working with teams like this group at NASA to help turn what they're trying to accomplish into a reality. But I also get to work and meet winners like the folks on this call, and I'm just always inspired by what you all can do. And this is one of my favorite parts of my job, is getting to meet you and getting to share your talent. So really excited to be here.
Wonderful. Thanks for being here, Kyla. From our NASA team joining us today, we have a few team members. So Paul, you want to kick us off with an intro?
Yeah, my name is Paul Kessler. I am one of the challenge designers. I would say that I was also working with my partner, Tracy Gill, quite heavily to try to design this. I work for NASA at NASA Langley Research Center here in Hampton, Virginia. And I'm an aerospace engineer working on human exploration and space flight. And yeah, it's an exciting thing to see what the community can bring to the table.
Wonderful. Thanks for being with us today, Paul. And that's a great segue. Tracy, for yourself, you want to jump in and introduce yourself?
Thanks, Cal. Hi, I'm Tracy Gill. I work at Kennedy Space Center. I'm coming to you from sunny Orlando. I hope to get back to the Space Center very soon. But I've been with NASA about 30 years, and I'm working on the Artemis program to help us get to the moon, which is what I wanted to join NASA for 30 years ago. So we're getting closer and closer, and I appreciate this opportunity to engage other folks on helping us solve the big problems that are out there to make that happen.
Thanks for being here, Tracy. Orlando, I'm jealous. I mean, you guys definitely have way more sun than we do out here in Vancouver. Jamie, you want to jump in next?
Yeah, sure. So hello, everyone. My name is Jamie Gomez, and I work with Tracy Gill. So I'm actually on the Space Coast of Florida. And I originally worked doing orbital replacement units for the International Space Station, so keeping the space station afloat, and now kind of transitioning to the Artemis program for the human landing system.
Good stuff. And last but certainly not least, Kevin.
Hey, it's good to be here. Yeah, I'm the challenge coordinator on this one, and I've also done a lot of other challenges working in the Prizes and Challenges program and the Game-Changing Technology Development program. But I can't claim to be a rocket scientist, but I was fortunate enough to be the systems engineer and the verification manager on the Ares 1X, which is innovators and makers. You guys, you know, the feeling of being able to start on a concept and seeing the hardware come together to do something like that is just incredible. So I've worked on a lot of things at NASA over 20 years. So good to be here.
Wonderful. Thanks for that, Kevin. And of course, we have our three winning teams with us. We are super excited to shine a spotlight on you guys today. So guys, I'm going to come to you guys for a round of introductions. So maybe share with us a little bit about obviously who you are, but maybe where you're physically located. Lauren, let's go with you first.
Hi, I'm Lauren Fell. I'm in sunny Brisbane, so in Australia. It's very early, the sun's just rising. A bit about me, I've got a psychology background, but I'm currently an associate lecturer at a university teaching in the Masters of IT. And yeah, I really enjoy participating in NASA challenges and you know, being involved in some way in space exploration is an exciting prospect.
Thanks for being here. Sunny Australia, wow. You're going to get a sense, you know, for the audience as these guys introduce themselves. When we say that genius can live anywhere, you're really going to get that when you hear about all the different locations these guys are in. Next up is Sergey and Yoni. Sergey, would you like to go first?
Yeah, okay. Hi all. I'm Sergey. I'm member of Space team with Yoni. I'm from Barcelona, from Spain, and currently I'm living in Germany. It's an honor being here today, surrounded by such talented people, and I'm very happy to be here.
Wonderful. Yoni, you want to go next?
Sure. Yeah. I'm Yoni Huopana, and I'm a mechanical engineer here in Finland, Oulu, quite far north. So this is like 150 miles from the Arctic Circle. So it's pretty north, and summers are very bright and winters are very dark. So I'm here and happy to be here also, and interesting to hear what other people have done.
Perfect. I had the pleasure of doing a Baltic cruise a few years ago, and the white nights are beautiful in the summertime. So I was lucky to go in July. I'm sure in wintertime is very different. All right, Fenton, you're up next.
Fenton, and I'm the team captain of Team FRD. And we're based in London, and my profession is as a vehicle designer or an industrial designer. So I mainly focus around doing sustainable electric aircraft and cars. And I really wanted to do this competition because it sounded like just such a crazy challenge. It's something that really it really is a challenge, and it's great to have got this far and to be included in such a esteemed company. I had a great time doing it.
And you have a partner in crime, Peter, who unfortunately wasn't able to join us today, but please make sure you extend our congratulations as well.
Definitely, yes.
All right, well, thanks everyone for sharing a little bit about who you guys are. So Paul, I'm gonna take it over to you now. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about the project itself?
Sure. Can you see that?
Perfectly. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. All right, I'm just going to go over the project again, a little bit less verbose than last time when I presented it. But the overall goal here is NASA's Artemis program is designed to send the first woman and the next man to the moon by 2024. But prior to the 2030s, we want to be able to create a sustainable base camp that's used for scientific exploration and to prepare us for the longer trek to Mars. Well, something that everybody needs on the surface of a remote place like that is they need things delivered to them. So in order to accomplish that, we have to have systems that can offload these items from different types of landers and be able to deliver them to the crew or to the other systems for the crew to utilize. And so as a part of that, we want to make sure we have some sort of robust and reliable cargo handling in that environment. It's quite a challenge. And in doing it, we also have multiple payload categories with multiple masses to be associated with each of them. Some are much, much larger because they're the very systems that maybe our crew are supposed to live on, while others might be more food or supplies or even scientific instrumentation. So doing this on the lunar surface, of course, comes with its challenges. And part of all of that also includes the interfaces for accessing these different payloads and putting them on the surface itself. Now, with that, we also have the another big challenge, which is that there are a lot of different lander types that can be produced to do this. And because this activity is very much in the early phases, there's not a lot of solid answers. And a lot of people like solid answers, but that's part of the challenge as well, is trying to figure out how I could offload different things from different types of landers and consider that in terms of my design. So these are the kind of solutions that we need to consider. But there are other considerations too. There's a lot of pros and cons to landing a capability for each payload versus having something that can be used across the architecture. What do I mean by that? Well, I mean that if you land something on its own and it can offload a payload, or it is itself the system that's going to be used in other places with other landers, that also adds some value. Well, there's also some other things that we need to consider, like the location, the elevation from the surface that we have. These could be very big primary drivers to how we can access that surface and get those payloads onto it. And we have to think about those interfaces like we talked about earlier. And these configurations really are going to drive what kind of offloading capability you have. And so we also have to consider options maybe for modularity or paths to where we can evolve these capabilities over time, because we're really there for a very sustained period so that we can really understand that environment and be prepared to go to Mars. So in this challenge, we also had judging criteria. The biggest thing on our list here, as you can see, is reliability and feasibility. We want to be able to make sure that this is something that we can actually implement and that it's going to do its job reliably, that it's not overly complex in a way that could cause problems, and that it can actually perform the functions that we are intending to do. But we also realize that mass and volume are at a premium. When you have to fit inside of a launch vehicle, and when you have to launch all of that mass all the way to the surface of the moon, you can imagine it's going to be very costly, and it's going to require a lot of propellant to do that. And we want to be able to make sure that it can fit within the capabilities that we have. And of course, another part of this is we have autonomy next on that list, because in a lot of cases, crew time is a premium. It's kind of like your work hours. But in space, those work hours really add up very quickly when you have to do a lot of different activities, and you don't want to spend it as much on offloading items if you can avoid it. And we also looked at things like proposal quality and the flexibility of design and whether or not it's applicable to the lunar surface. But we also recognize that in the applicability of the lunar surface, sometimes people don't have that knowledge, and we believe we can bring some of that to the table if we come up with really good ideas from the public that we can utilize. So there are other prizes too, right? Other than the financial prizes that winners get, they get to present, in this case, in the webinar, they get to talk a little bit about what their projects are. And our intent here is to make sure that you can have discussions with NASA engineers too. So that's what we're going to have going on. And we want to have more opportunity for you to have virtual events and conferences, because we recognize right now during this pandemic, not a lot of people are at their centers. And in fact, most of our centers are pretty empty at this point. So we're not able to bring people on the center right now, but that is something that we would like to open up. We also have provided a lot of social media promotion. Hopefully the winners have seen some of their ideas being put out there, which is great. It's pretty amazing and a great feeling, I'm sure, to be a winner and to see your great concepts and ideas and innovations being put out there to the public to see, and to just say, wow, I did that and I'm making a difference. And we want to be able to showcase these things, which is what we're doing here in this webinar today. And I do want to also say that these concepts that have been selected, these are amazing concepts. We've seen a lot of great ideas come through. And as much as you want to pick everything, you've got to pick what's going to fit the best into the boxes that we have. These concepts, I do plan on taking these concepts to some major decision makers within the agency, and we plan on refining these over time and running these through different trades to try to see how they can fit into that overall picture. And it would be even more fantastic if anything that you've come up here, we can see down at the end of the road that it's actually being implemented. That would be even the greatest icing on the cake. And my hope is that we can do that. My hope is that it will get through, or at least a couple of these will get through. But I do know that they've been highly informative. And I know that a lot of decision makers pretty high in the agency are going to be really interested to see this. So my plan is to present a lot of these wonderful ideas to them in the upcoming weeks. And that's pretty much it. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks so very much for that background. It's really helpful to understand, some of the details behind the actual challenge itself for those that actually haven't been following it that closely. I'd love to ask this question. So Tracy, I'm going to ask you this. Tell me how you would compare the experience of using the competition versus a typical route of product design.
Well, the difference is, I think the power to crowdsourcing, and I love crowdsourcing for this, is that you get a myriad of designs from a myriad of different backgrounds and perspectives that you might not ordinarily get from working inside of NASA. Now, there are a lot of NASA engineers that come from different backgrounds and they have different perspectives. And I think we value that, especially at NASA, because those different perspectives, those different backgrounds really can bring a lot of value to the table with new innovative ideas and concepts. But I think as you broaden it to a larger group of individuals, to a larger public, it only gets better, right? The challenge, I think, always when you do that solicitation is trying to discern what is the most appropriate one that you can take forward. And that's where it's difficult. It's difficult as a judge to actually sift through all of those great ideas and try to find the ones that are going to bubble to the surface. But it's an exciting thing, and to be able to have those new perspectives, I think, always brings value to the table.
Gotcha. So for this particular challenge, we had 6 winning teams, 1 first place team, 2 second place teams, and 3 third place teams. So today we're pleased to be joined by the first and the second place teams. Tracy, now you're part of the actual review of the submissions, right? You actually saw a lot of the submissions come through. Oh. Are you able to hear me, Tracy, okay? No, did he lose his audio? Okay, no worries. So, Kevin or Paul, either of you guys can jump in just really quickly, just to give our audience a perspective. The total number of submissions were 224. So when you first started the project, did you have like a number in your mind of what you thought you were going to get? And if so, what was your expectation?
I think initially we had, go ahead, Kevin.
Yeah, I'll just add in, I've worked in the prizes and challenges for a bit now, and we see, with typically 100 submissions and things like this, we got a pretty good volume of submissions on this one. And trust me, as you're a judge and you're trying to down select, it's a lot of work, because every idea might have that nugget in there that makes it to space flight. And so we look pretty carefully on that, and as Paul said, we're not looking at who submitted or anything. We're looking at the value of the submissions, because we're the ones that have to go forward on these trade studies. And if we have a good design for the trade study, the last thing we want is a great idea to not get implemented and fall through the cracks. And then we're proceeding forward on a suboptimal solution. and later on we might have to come back and redesign based on some idea out there that makes a huge difference in our capability. And so we look at them very carefully and try to decide which ones. But that down select is very difficult. You'll get some ideas, and we what we have, we had two or three rounds of down select. So we brought them down to one level, then we brought them down to another level, and finally, and so we had how many judges? I forget the number, but we had several judges. It's too much workload to go through every single one, and so we had a lot of judges give a subset of them, and then the final selection based on the scores, we got that. But like I said, it's a lot of work, and we always get great solutions here and there. And I was really pleased to see what we got.
Perfect. Tracy, you're back now. Let's see if your audio works.
Can you hear me?
There he is. Isn't that like the theme for 2020? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me
It
now?
is every week, all day. Yeah.
Perfect. So is there anything else you wanted to add? I don't know how much of Kevin's share you got, but it was just more or less just the whole idea of the number of submissions that you got and what your expectation was, and did it meet it? Did it exceed it?
Oh yeah, well, it's been interesting because we really wanted to get a different perspective and kind of supplement the ideas that we already had and think about things that were kind of out of the box, because with NASA you get in a certain mindset and you see things over and over again, and maybe you get into a groove and have certain expectations, and when you get that fresh perspective, it always gives you a recharge and a new way of looking at things. So that's one of the reasons that we were really excited to do this challenge and give this opportunity out there in a wider audience so that we could get that perspective, especially on something that everyone can relate to so easily, like offloading cargo. You see it every day. Amazon comes to your house. You see the trucks and trains and boats all over the place. So we thought that would be a good way to connect.
Perfect. Thank you for that. So winners, what do you guys think? Are you guys ready to roll here? So let's learn a little bit more about the soft facts behind some of these amazing winning solutions. So Kyla, if you want to go ahead and start your screen share. And I don't want to be the one with the hook to say, okay, that's it, you're off the stage. But let's aim for about 6-7 minutes each. I want to make sure that everyone gets an opportunity to share. So let's get started with Fenton. So Fenton, you were part of one of the 2 second place winning teams. And so really quickly, before you get into the solution itself, tell me a little bit about who came up with the name for the team.
So, sorry, could you repeat that quickly?
Yeah, no, who came up with the name for your team?
Oh, the name for the team, FRD.
Yeah.
So that stands for Phantom Robotham Design.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, it's nothing too fantastical.
Gotcha. So Peter can join us today, but like I said, make sure you pass along our congratulations to him as well. So we're all excited to hear a little bit more about the solution itself, how you came up with it, what inspired you. So the floor is yours.
Yeah, okay. So the OOA, or the Moon Goat, as it's abbreviated in OOA, it's all about thinking about flexibility and robustness. So originally we were thinking about a crane, and then we were wondering, well, it's cost this much money, it's taken this long to get it up to the moon. What could it also do beyond unloading and loading that could be really useful for further NASA missions, such as creating basic infrastructure, such as grading a route and planting a route for landers and other bits of equipment, and also exploring the regions such as PSRs, deep craters, and also seeing how we can adopt the existing design legacy that NASA and the rest of the space agencies around the world have spent such a long time trying to get right and establish something that works really well, such as in the Mars rovers and all the satellite designs, and seeing what can be pulled from those and adopted into this OOA Moon Goat system. And so that's really what kind of inspired the whole thing. And so yeah, it was designed to work universally around different lander designs, because when we were doing a lot of research, we were looking at all the different sorts of landers. So you had the Dynatex lander, you had the SpaceX lander, you had the National Team lander, you had Blue Origin, and you had the Orion system as well, Orion. And we were trying to work out how it could work with all these different landers. So we decided that it working as a modular team set would be really efficient and really successful, because they could monitor each other, they could look out for each other, and they could also work with very unexpected situations. And that was really the design mentality behind it.
Perfect. Is that the last slide, Tyler?
I think there's another one. Let me know when you want me to scroll through them as well, Fenton.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, so the and then there was this final bit about the moon goat, which was it was all about the unexpected. So like, what happens if it gets broken or gets damaged or gets stuck? And so the whole idea, well, some of the ideas were actually translated from how a film camera is designed, where you've got the camera cage around the camera body, and you know, you've got this sort of like cheese plate where you can attach all these different tools. So it comes with a foldable telescopic arm, which can either be operated by itself or overridden autonomously. I mean, overridden from a distance and acting as like a haptic remote system from like ground control or Artemis base, where if it really gets in a tricky situation, it needs to be able to, it needs a bit of human intuition to help it out of the situation. And yeah, initially we were thinking that maybe it could walk instead. So like the Boston Dynamics dog, we were thinking about legs, and then we realized the back was going to rock and it actually wasn't going to be that stable for carrying payloads. And then we tried tracks, and then we realized the problem with the dust mitigation and that kind of very coarse glass, almost dust you get on the lunar surface. And then we realized that the rover design is just the most effective solution, with the rocker and bogie suspension set, which allows a very stable level platform. It doesn't have to move fast because it's carrying a huge load and it needs to move slowly. So it's got a huge amount of torque. It doesn't throw out much dust. And it can adopt a lot of the existing systems from the Mars rovers into it. And it's just really a different main body, where it's not a moving laboratory, but it's more like a remote control or a semi-intelligent handyman, I guess you could say, is how I'd best describe it. A bit like Wall-E in a way. I mean, if you get my drift, you know, it's very useful, very practical, and very robust. And that's pretty much how we came to the moon goat design.
Perfect. Was that I think that was the last slide.
Yeah.
There you go.
So this is actually the main slide, which is supposed to showcase how it's going to help everyone. You know, it could carry a satellite dish, or it could carry moon rock samples back to the base in a region where the astronauts couldn't reach because of lack of air, and it's kind of reached a stop-off point. And it's also kind of demonstrating the design legacy compared to the Mars rovers, where you can see a lot of similar things. The only difference really being is the wedge-shaped tail of it, which partially acts as heat cooling, heat finning radiation, but also is mainly to help unload payloads off the back of it, so they kind of roll off the back. And in the front of it, which has got this kind of grading blade, which allows it to grade a path through the lunar surface, or even if it's got a large, so it's got a small winch from the front, but it could have a larger winch, and it could use it to dig itself in like a kind of claw to help purchase a stronger grip.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, listen, well done.
Thank you
So
very much.
congratulations again. And it's, again, always nice to hear like some of the stories behind how you kind of got to where you got to. So thanks so very much for that share. So let's move on to our second place winners, Sergey and Yoni. So you guys are up next. You can see your slides are there. So tell us a little bit about the solution. But, you know, before we get there, I'm just interested to always ask, teaming is something that is done quite frequently, just when individuals compete on some of these challenges. So whose idea was it to actually compete in this particular challenge? Or did you guys just come up with it together?
Well, there was a previous competition with a similar kind of subject where we need to figure out how to build an inflatable gantry, and Sergey and I both competed in that, but we were competing against each other. So during that and after that, we figured out that maybe we could join up and then do this one together. And I think that's was basically behind how we teamed up and started to think about this solution then.
Gotcha. So why go up against each other when you can be on the same team? Like it. That's a really great idea. So, all right, guys, tell us a little bit more about your solution.
Okay, so I'll start with the name. I've done my share of project applications and grant applications, so you always need a good acronym for the project. So I started with this Scalable Payload delivery system, so SPADES for short. And the basic idea for this was that it will be difficult to have one thing that can do all the required things for the payload deliveries on the moon. So we thought about different kinds of systems and how to expand the whole delivery system with the moon mission. So we thought about that and then figure out that firstly we need to use something that is already working, that we know that works. So we started the first phase with a robotic arm. So we just have because those kind of things are already in use in Mars rovers and other things like that. So we know that those work. So we take that for the beginning and start with the smaller loads. And when the mission grows and we have bigger payloads, then we expanded another phase where we start to use different offloading things. And there we have an inflatable mobile gantry then, which is designed to have good relation with mass and stiffness, so it wouldn't be too expensive to put it on the moon, and that could be used then to move things around on the moon, like payloads and doing some sort of infrastructure constructions and stuff like that. And the last bit that was included, this was a third phase, and which has this bigger crane, which you probably have seen these kind of things in the construction sites and stuff, and it's a ballast crane. And the idea behind this was then basically to think about how to get a ballast to work on the moon when it's very expensive to bring mass on the moon. And the idea was to actually use rocks from the moon as the mass, so you don't have to take them there because they're already there. And that was the idea for the last phase of this system. And basically these parts of all of these things are based on some machinery or already existing things in industry or in other fields of engineering. Mostly, if you think about this environment, I think you can find something like this or basis for this in mining industry or something like that. But we have also, but there is no limit for mass there, but that's a place where to start from.
Perfect. And should we go to the next slide?
Yeah.
Perfect.
So things we need to consider, which I already mentioned here there also, but how we thought that we could answer these things with the design was to, with the low mass, we could use inflatable structures and folding things and optimizing design. And for the harsh environment, we would use simple things. And this is to take into account that when you put something to a moon, it's probably you won't want to have a maintenance for it. So you need to have something simple that works. And also that when there's more than one type of crane there, you can have a flexible system. So these have a capabilities that overlap a bit. So one can lift similar masses with the other, and it doesn't limit if something breaks or something like that. You can use the other crane to help out in the total operation there. And if you think about where these ideas came from, I think for me, the as a family man with 3 kids, it was over Christmas. This was pretty much all thought work done when I had time, which basically meant that when my 2-year-old woke up at the night, during the night, I put her back to bed and then lie there beside the bed with a teddy bear as a pillow and thought about things, how to build things in the moon. So I think that was the main design process for this one, but it turned out pretty well.
That's so inspiring. Just, the one thing that we do find when we chat with winners and those that actually compete in challenges is that, winning is wonderful and the prizes are great, but it's actually the third reason that most oftentimes we hear that you compete. It's mostly to either, make a difference or, have fun or, create value. And I definitely got that in how you've shared today. So thanks so very much for walking us through your solution. And again, well done and congratulations to you both. All right, so next up, drum roll, we have our first place winner, Ms. Lauren Fell. So Lauren, tell us, is this isn't your first time competing in a NASA challenge, is it?
No, I've done a few before, and I was thinking about when you mentioned different reasons for competing. One of my main reasons is to learn new things, and I'm reflecting back on I got second years ago in a different challenge where it was to design a heat shield or a radiation shield, and that was all done with shapes on PowerPoint. So through competing in these challenges, I've learned a bit of CAD design and I've done some 3D printing, and really all of that has come from participating in these sorts of challenges. So that's a really valuable part of these things for me.
So, for those that are like listening who may not have competed in a NASA challenge, I mean, what would you say to them? Like, because oftentimes people will say, oh, I probably don't have the right answer, or I probably won't be selected. Like, what would you say to them? I'm just curious.
I'd say go for it. I don't have an engineering background. I'm very sort of outside of this kind of area, but I think if you have a sort of inspiration or you can think of an idea that could work, then just give it a go and try and flesh it out as much as you can and tell a nice story with it. And yeah, definitely you have to be in it to win it. So
Yeah.
always try.
Well said, in it to win it. So, well, you definitely won it. So now tell us a little bit more about your actual solution.
Okay, excellent. So I think this slide's gone a little funny. It's missing some text. Must have been in the sending of it, but essentially I'll talk to this one. So I also came from that GrabCAD challenge where it was to design an inflatable gantry. That's how I heard about this challenge. The way I kind of envisaged the shape was I was kind of thinking of having a sort of dome-like structure, and I thought anything that's pulling down on that and the weight, if I'm doing it with my hands, it kind of feels like it'll cave. So I kind of ended up with this kind of a design where the more you pull down, the more the two ends kind of push together. So that's mainly that sort of second part of that gantry that you can see there. And I also have the dome part as well. To add to the gantry, this unloading kind of capability, I was aiming more to start with for the SpaceX, the very high one. So I thought if I go for what I saw as the most difficult one, and hopefully it can scale down to the easier, smaller or shorter ones. And I sort of thought, I don't know where the idea came from because I haven't flown in a while because of COVID, but the idea kind of came from where you take your luggage out of the overhead compartment in a plane. So because it's quite high, you tend to sort of slide your hand underneath and then you grab the handle, and when you slide it out, you then tilt it and then lower it to the ground. So there's kind of this sort of winching kind of thing with a handle, but also this kind of sliding action. So from there, I designed a rotatable, almost like a forklift component that also attaches via claws at the front of that. And the claws are kind of magnetic because I wanted to make it what's the word, automatic, autonomous. So essentially they'll magnetize when they're close to the payload, so that it's, if it's not exactly lined up, they can latch on that way. So I think that's all I had for that slide. If I'm able, yeah, perfect. So essentially the sort of stages of this are, so it can pack down, it's inflatable. So I kind of thought of having a sort of spiral mechanism within that within each inflatable leg, so that when it deflates, it won't sort of fold up together and become sort of tangled up. So it will deflate in a very sort of structured way. It will inflate, sort of drive along using LiDAR and other things to get it to the lander. And from there, it will, the fork component will rotate so that it's horizontal. Take the payload out. It also will scan the payload as well, so that it knows what the weight is and can adjust accordingly. And then it slides it out, attaches the claws, and then lowers it down. And because it has these sort of winch components as well, it means that in lower landers, it can sort of take things out of, say, a top hatch, if that's going to be a possibility in the future. So yeah, that's the kind of basic sort of steps of how that works. And then I'll briefly talk about the process of designing it on the next slide, if I can. I find it helpful to sort of do things physically because I'm not really engineer minded. So trial and error was a big part of this solution. So both with sort of thought experiments, imagining how things are going to work, but also by sort of creating a sort of little 3D printed prototypes. So the legs are sort of rubber to emulate a kind of inflatable, what it would be like once it's got enough PSI to be rigid or semi-rigid. And yeah, I just had some electric components to try and get it working how it might in a sort of fully formed version. So I used Raspberry Pi to do that, as well as a little bit of computer vision as well. So yeah, so that's kind of the process. So thanks for listening.
Good stuff. So I'll have to ask you, so when you found out that you won, who was the first person you told?
Well, it's always exciting because I'm in Australia. Usually these things come through overnight, so it's always a really exciting thing to wake up and sort of see this email come through. I think I called my mum, actually. She was the only one that was going to be up at that time. So yeah, it was very exciting.
And that was after you finished jumping up and down and screaming.
Of course, yeah.
Or maybe during, it really just depends.
Yeah.
Thanks so very much for sharing that, Lauren. And you know what, to all of you guys, great shares. And from my perspective, I'm not an engineer, I'm not any of that. So when I listen to how each of you guys approached the problem, there is obviously some similarities, but so many distinctions. It's just so refreshing because oftentimes we'll say, creativity and genius can literally live anywhere. And when you come on to these webinars, that it's really, you can see that when you look at all the different places in the world that you guys are located and how differently you approached everything. How can we not but get tremendously different and amazing ideas? So on behalf of NASA and the HeroX team, congratulations to each and every one of you. Well done. So you know what, I'm gonna, Kevin and Tracy, especially after hearing some of the stories here, any final thoughts? Kevin, do you wanna maybe jump in first?
Yeah, it's great to see this innovation. I can tell you, working at prizes and challenges, there's so much passion out around the world on people that just want to get involved with space projects. And unfortunately, a lot of countries, it's very difficult to do. And so it's incredible to be able to offer this opportunity to this passionate bunch of makers and innovators out there, and seeing what comes back is really nice. Like I said, I work in the game-changing program office. We have multitudes of technology projects. I think Fenton with his moon goats, we have the Cadre project that's looking at cooperative operations with micro robots, and so that would be very applicable to the moon goats and making them work together. And other ones, fiducials and machine vision that would allow Lawrence to operate. And so, being an engineer, I as you guys talk, I go, this is how you could help make that work. And so I always want to come up with solutions. But it's great to see these things come out, and I'm really glad that you participated in these projects. And I'll let Tracy go because I could talk for a long time.
Tracy.
Thanks, Kevin. Yeah, thanks, Kevin. I agree with you. It's neat to see the different solutions and the different approaches you guys have, and then to see where you guys come from all over the world, and the fact that you're interested in what we're doing. We take it as quite a compliment to see the energy you have towards it. The innovations, the prototyping that you did, getting up in the middle of the night and thinking about it before you can fall back asleep. These are all things that we're familiar with. So it's so cool to see that resonate with you all too. So thanks for the efforts for not just you guys, but for everybody who participated as well.
Good stuff. Kyle, I'm going to come back to you for a final thought in just 1 minute. But first, Paul, now that you got these amazing solutions, what's next?
Well, what's next is to take these and run through our trade studies where we're doing offloading and see how they perform against other systems that NASA engineers have already designed, and to potentially mature the good ideas that we have here further. And hopefully the long-term goal, the hope there is that we can implement, like I said, one or two of these designs. But in the meantime as well, it's also making aware our particular stakeholders inside of NASA of these great ideas and where they've come from. And I know that in some ways will be additional motivation for NASA to reach out again to the public. At the same time, I think it's also something that's been informative for us in the work that we're doing in this early phase of concept design.
As they say, once you sip the Kool-Aid, that's it, you're going to keep coming back. Kyla, final thoughts. When you project manage this, it must be amazing for you to come, full circle and see the end here.
Yeah, it is so amazing to see the end and to see these submissions. There were 223 entries for this challenge. So just for the winners here, let that sink in. And for everyone that's listening that didn't win, I know I recognize a few names. I just also want to congratulate you on the hard work that you did. This was a big challenge. And like Kevin said at the beginning, the judging process was really difficult to get it down to the top teams that we wanted to award. In addition to the 3 teams you see here, we also awarded 3 third place winners and 6 finalists as well. So just lots of great submissions, and congratulations to the teams. It's exciting to be a part of it. It's exciting to witness your passion and creativity and innovation, and thank you for participating.
Thanks so much, Kyla. So I guess a final thought on my end. I mean, I get the absolute pleasure of hosting most of our winners webinars. And you know what, I can honestly say that there's no one webinar that's the same. May that be for who the winners are, or potentially where they're located, or what the challenge topic is. It's incredible to me how versatile and applicable the whole idea of the crowdsourcing methodology is across the globe, across all industries, really. I mean, you can be a startup, Fortune 500, regardless of who you are, what kind of organization you are, you will get value out of hosting a challenge. And you know what, on the innovator side, you can be a Harvard graduate, or you can be a street smart innovator who didn't or couldn't lean into post-secondary education. The HeroX platform doesn't distinguish between the innovators other than who had the best idea. So by virtue of how it works, it's extremely impactful as it lifts the barriers to entry and really levels the playing field for everyone that competes. I mean, the possibilities on what you can crowdsource and who participates in these projects is honestly truly endless. And it's a gift and it's a pleasure to facilitate such an incredibly powerful process. So thanks so very much. You know, hearing all of your guys' shares, that brings our webinar to a close. For those who may be interested in hosting a challenge, HeroX hosts challenges across all industries globally, as I mentioned. Take a look at the active projects that we have on HeroX now and really get inspired. The possibilities team is on standby for any follow-up questions. You can reach out anytime. You can reach out to me directly, cal@herox.com. Happy to answer any questions for you guys. To our winners, once again, a huge shout out and congratulations. It was such a pleasure to learn more about who you are and what you're up to, and really hear firsthand the passion behind the solution. To the NASA team, we really appreciate each of you taking time out of your busy schedules. For our listeners, get inspired. If you are a NASA enthusiast, if you wanted to participate in something related to space, check out their active challenges and make sure that you register. There are some amazing projects that they have active right now. And with that, thank you so very much for taking the time to join us today. Please stay safe, and depending on where you are in this big, beautiful world, have a wonderful morning, afternoon, or evening. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Congratulations.
Thank you.